In just a second, I'm going to be introducing Amy Harmon, and this is our second interview because I love talking to her so much. I asked her to come back on and talk about her newest book that'll be released in February. It's called The Smallest Part. The last time we chatted, I think it was back in October, November, and we talked about her book From Sand and Ash, which was just amazing. And she is one of my all time favorite authors. Her books are so amazing. But anyway, I can't wait. And I will do a little video afterwards and we can talk about, give a little wrap up of what Amy and I talk about. So, anyway, here is Amy. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be speaking again with author Amy Harmon. And Amy, you are like one of my favorite authors ever, just so you know, because your books are so good. But we're going to be talking about her newest book that comes out in February 13th, is called The Smallest Part. And she has a mock-up copy of the cover of that. Look at that. So cool. Your covers are so cool too. And because so this book kind of goes with the Law of Moses, which she has.
Yes.
Yes. And she has the cover of that, which I love this cover. Do you know how
Yes.
long it took me to actually see? Like, I was like, wait, what is, like on my Kindle, I'm like,
Yeah.
what is,
Yes. The the face.
the
A
face?
little bit hard to see like this, but this is my favorite cover, I think, of all of my books.
But all of your books have amazing covers. I was going through them today and I was like, wow, do you have anything to do with them?
The ones that I self-publish, I do. I mean, the foreign covers, you don't get much say.
Okay.
But the ones I self-publish, I have quite a bit. In
You
fact,
do?
I decide what I want, and
Right.
then I have someone that's better at graphics and stuff make that vision come to life.
Yes.
And then the ones that I do for Lake Union, I do have input. If I really don't like usually I have a mock-up cover
Yeah.
to go and say this is what I want, and then I
Right.
try to get them as close to that as I possibly can, because
Right.
they have their own ideas about how they want things done. But
Right. Well,
so
and what's so cool about the Law of Moses cover is because of the idea of the paint that he paints.
yes,
And
hmm
so you can really see, like, I don't know, it's a very cool cover. It really
yeah,
is. And
I cried the first time I saw it because
uh,
it had captured it so well that I was floored.
okay, well, let's talk at Law of Moses first, because then we kind
Okay,
of get into the smallest part. Um,
right.
the thing, and we've talked before, and for your book, From Ash and Sand, and the reason I love you so much is because your stories are so good. And I have to tell you, I have been getting a lot of people, a lot of my authors that haven't written books yet, like they're just debut authors,
Yeah.
right? They will
Mhm.
send me a couple of chapters of their books and ask me what I think as a reader, right?
Sure.
And as a, like I can kind of say now, I've read enough books where I can be like, a little bit. I'm not, technical, but I can be like, I know what I like to read. Well, when I was reading, I reread The Law of Moses last week. And I was like, that's what you do so well. I don't know how to tell people, like, except for go read Amy's books and then you will see how a story goes, because your buildup of the story and what keeps you turning pages. It's hard to tell somebody this is what you have to do. For me, I'm sure an editor could do that.
Right.
But for me, it's like, I don't know, just go read Amy's books and look at her story structure.
I think what a lot of authors, and I've had a hard time trying to verbalize it as well. I think one thing I do well, and there's other things I don't do as well that I need to work on, but there are no seams. I try really hard to make the story and the language and the flow from one piece to the next very seamless, so that there's this tempo, and there's also there. I call it clunky paragraphs, and I always say this to my editor: look for clunky paragraphs. This feels clunky, and I've gotten really good at smoothing everything out so that there's a steady tempo and a steady flow to the language and to the storyline and to the way the pieces fit together. So those seams, it takes a while, but the seams, smoothing out the seams is, I think, what makes a polished
Well,
enjoyable experience.
Yeah, and I love your phrasing. Okay. And the law of Moses shows it so, and then it continues on in the smallest part. It's because you play on the words, like their banter between
Yeah.
Georgia and Moses. Like I was like, how did she come up with this stuff? It's so good.
Oh,
Like just how you use the law of Moses, and it's like it has all these different, as you're reading the book, and they refer back to it all the time, and
right,
it's this constant, and it's almost like a tension buildup of where the story's going. And I'm telling you, I had no idea. And rereading it, I found so many parts that I had missed before that I
right.
loved. I was like, oh, I'd forgotten about this. Oh my gosh, the way she went from, I loved Georgia and the tension in Georgia in her
Mm,
life with and
yeah,
without Moses. Okay. You're
right.
just like, where's she going? Where's she going with her life? Like, I don't get it. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to talk about because I want
It's
everybody.
one of those books that is really hard to discuss and not ruin it for the reader.
Right.
So if there's some readers that need a little bit more, I had some bloggers that didn't like the spiritual element, I'll call it that, and some people call it a paranormal element. They wanted to be warned. For me, it didn't feel like a paranormal story. I've read lots of paranormal and love it.
It's not.
Most didn't feel right. It
It's
doesn't feel paranormal.
not.
So it really, when this book came out in 2014, there was this kind of, and all publicity is good. So that I'm not complaining about the negative publicity, but there was a negative backlash because I had not warned, I had not put it in the right genre. Some people claimed because I had not put it in a paranormal genre. And honestly, it never occurred to me to label it as paranormal. Maybe it's just who I am,
You know,
my own duality.
yeah, and you know what's funny about those genres is I was talking to another author about this is those sub genres. Now you don't just have genres to worry about. Amazon has made it that there are these like sub, so it's like okay, it's suspenseful, but it's a love story, but it's like they want you to describe it in 10 words what kind of a book it is, and if you don't
Yeah,
say what it is specifically, everybody's like, "Oh my god, it was a romance and you didn't even say romance."
yeah. There were no trigger warnings, so I just, I had to kind of let that roll off my back. It was a good learning experience. But if there are readers out there that know they need more, they know they need more explanations, there's so many ways to get those explanations.
There
There's
are.
reviews that are up. You
Yeah.
can, if you need those spoilers, go on to Goodreads. You'll get the spoilers. Ask questions. I'm always really open to readers contacting me directly. I have it happen all the time where somebody will say, "I don't understand this," or "Why this?" or "Why did you do this?" My website has quite Q&As that people can look through. There's just a lot out there. So if you know that about yourself, you don't like certain elements, maybe read some reviews first. But I find that the Law of Moses is, I think, one of the best things about that book was the fact that it took you on this journey that you never expected to go on. It's
No.
very different.
Right. And it isn't about his gift. Okay.
No,
That isn't that isn't the point of the
no,
story. So that's I guess why I didn't consider it paranormal either. And I have
right,
read paranormal, so I do know what the difference. I did
right,
not think that was at all because it's a gift and it's not the main focus of the book,
right.
but it's the journey of them and just everything. But
And lots of,
I loved
yeah,
how you did him because he was spiritual, and I love the religious. And I'm a Christian, so
yeah,
anybody out there who's like, but I'm a Christian. Okay, I'm a Christian. Okay, it's like
right.
it didn't affect me in a negative. To me it made it better and bigger
Right.
and bigger and because I knew exactly what you were talking about, cooler to me,
Yeah.
so
Right.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. So then we go, and you had told me that the smallest part was just going to go into, was going to be, you were like, if you read this, it's going to be perfect, because, so that's why I reread it. Cause I was like, well, let me just freshen up on it before I start the smallest part. And I have to say that in the beginning, I was like, no, I know that's familiar. How do I know it's familiar? And I just read it, and then I realized, oh my God, she took the character, and and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Well, they're not connected. The stories aren't connected in any way that demands
Right.
what or the reader
No.
has read either story.
No.
You can read them both separately. You can read The Law of Moses and never read The Smallest Part. They're independent completely of each other.
Yes.
But there's a character in The Law of Moses, a doctor. He's a psychologist, and he's a young psychologist. And you get a glimpse. You meet him in The Law of Moses, and it's just
Yes.
a very small part, which is kind of why that's the smallest part. That's where the title
Yes.
came from. But he has this very small part in the Law of Moses, and you get a window into his story. And I have had his story in my head ever since I wrote the Law of Moses, knowing that Dr. Noah Andelin had a story that was really fleshed out in my mind. But I had other things I needed to do, and so his story just stayed on the back burner. And I just finished another historical in September. And I thought I had a little window of time between when I needed to start on another project I have for another publisher. And I said to myself, I'm going to write Dr. Noah's story and
Oh,
just put it out there. So this is his story separate from Moses. The nice thing though in The Smallest Part is that it's like the story is tipped and you get little pieces of Moses in The Smallest Part, separate from the Law of Moses story. So it's kind of fun to have those character spin-offs where the world just keeps broadening.
yes.
You just keep telling, you're in the same world but you're telling different people's stories, and I
Yeah.
love that.
Right. And I know your fans are going to love it because as a reader, I love that because especially when I have a book like that I loved so much that's why I'm saying it isn't a huge character because you're not like Noah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's like,
Oh, we had completely forgotten about Noah. I mean,
yes,
he was just a psychologist. He played a very minor little part.
right. Right.
But
And then when you put it, and then, reading Noah's story and how he felt about Moses, I loved that, you could go back and forth. And so I do suggest reading it, but that's just because it's me. But I think most of
it
your
just makes
fans will anyway.
it makes it more fun.
Yes.
It's not necessary. It's just that it's like you're in on the world. You know these people already, and so that when you see Moses come into The Smallest Part, you're like, it's Moses. It's
Yes.
just that's all it is that you
Right.
have a fondness for him and a depth to his story that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
That's
And
all.
I kind of thought you were writing like this sequel to Moses.
Right.
So I
And
kept
it's
waiting.
not.
Yeah, it's not. I kept waiting. I'm like, okay, where's Moses? Okay, Noah, but where's Moses? Like, where is he? When he shows up finally, you're like, oh, okay, it's not like he's not. But but it's kind of cool that way too. Like, because a lot of times that's tricky is like trying to make this story of Moses go on and on and on forever. Like, that's kind of tricky in itself. But anyway, yeah, I loved it. And then I have to tell you, so remember I said my daughter was pregnant and she's watching this and she's thinking of names. She's at that, she's sick, but then it comforts her to think boy girl names. And the other day she said, I'm thinking about the name Keegan. What do you think of that? I'm like, I've never heard that name before.
And what do you know? It's a name in The Smallest Part. That's so funny.
So I wanted to know. So as I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, when you did the Law of Moses, like, I mean, it was perfect. His name, of course, and I'm going to let everybody read it because I don't want to tell them why he's named Moses. But you named him appropriately. Like, how do you do that as a writer? Because names are important, and I'm always intrigued by especially books like these because names are even more so important because they have so many meanings. Like Georgia, of course. And like I said, you got to read because that comes back up. Her name just keeps
Right.
using over and over again. And so, what is your process in that when in your writing?
You know what? Sometimes the name is secondary. Sometimes it isn't as important. In Moses and David and that in those stories, David is the sequel to Moses. So we haven't talked about that one yet.
We haven't.
But I'll hold it
Interesting,
up.
because you know what? I did not read. Now I'm like, oh,
Song
so
of
the Song
David
of David
is-
is kind of. Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Song of David is a sequel. It's a companion book. I don't like to call it sequel because the story in the Law of Moses is
Oh my God,
complete.
Do you know how happy you just made my day? That's how I get to read. This weekend I have this little blip of time, and I'm going to be reading the Song of David.
Song of David it's actually told from Moses and Tag. It's Moses and Tag back and forth in
Oh,
the story.
wow.
And Tag is Moses' best friend. So
Yes.
those two are much more companion books. The smallest part is just a character spinoff.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
So, okay, back to names. So tell me how
Names.
you do that.
Sometimes the names are really pivotal, and sometimes I'll assign a character a name, and as I continue to flesh them out, the name isn't right anymore, and I'll have to change it. Something will occur to me, and I'll think, oh, this isn't the name that this character needs. And other times I start with a name, like I did with Moses, because I
Mm-hmm.
had a concept in my mind for what the story was and what the theme of the story was. I always have themes, and I don't always disclose those things. Those are just tools that help me as a writer. That I have a general theme for the book. What do I want this character to learn? And therefore, sometimes what do I want the reader to learn? Although I never have the objective that I want to teach, because I think that comes off wrong in books. But mostly, what do I want the character to learn? What does the story revolve around? What moral or what objective does this story um, revolve around? And that usually has that theme sometimes has a name. Like with
Right.
Moses, Moses is part of the theme, and so it was really an obvious thing to do. When I told my dad the title of the book, he asked, what are you working on? And I told him, oh, and he goes, I said, I'm going to call it The Law of Moses. Now, my dad is a theologian. He taught seminary.
Wow. So no
Oh, my
wonder.
grown-up years.
No
And so
wonder.
he laughed right out loud. He's like, you're not going to name it that. And I said, yes, I am. And I know that title has thrown some people off that are more familiar with the Bible, and they've wondered if it's a fictional or if it's a Bible thing. And there is an element of the Bible story in his name and in some symbolism, but that's all.
Right. Right.
So, and a
Right.
lot of my foreign um, publishers have changed the name because I think that they don't know how to put that out there with their readers without it being confusing. But
Right. Because they're like, how can we put this book out with it saying the law of, and it's not
yeah,
a religious book,
yeah.
at all.
Well,
So,
Song of David, again, that's a religious title,
right.
Psalms. So, but it went,
Well, now
it went,
knowing your background, I do get that more, I do understand more like
yeah,
how that
there's
was.
always that thread in my books, and I can't, and it's just mostly who I am that I can't get away from it. It's where
Right.
my thought processes go, and
Right.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, this new book, I mean, the smallest part, it's so amazing. Like, like I said, your storytelling is like so. When did you know you could really tell a good story like that? Like when did that? Because it's such a gift. I just want you to know that. Because, like I said, the more that I'm reading, and especially of newer authors, it's like it is such a gift to be. I don't know if it was a journey for you or if it was just something that came so easy for you.
stories never come easy. I mean, I I work hard at making those stories seamless and writing a story that um, isn't isn't the same as what else is out there. I definitely have my own voice and my own style, uh, but I've been writing all my life. It's always been the medium that I have turned to creatively. I can't paint. I can't sculpt. I'm not very good at making things beautiful. I'm not, but I do have a gift for words, and I always have. Whether it was poetry or song lyrics, or that was always my medium.
Wow.
And I was always a big reader, and I knew what I liked. I knew the things that spoke to me when I read, and there weren't enough books out there. Not that there aren't amazing authors and amazing books. I have so many people that I admire and so many books that I like. But I knew what I liked, and I wanted to see if I could replicate it.
Right.
Knowing what appealed to me, I wanted to see if I could do that. And I wrote. I think we mentioned this when we interviewed before. I wrote my first book when I was well into my 30s. My first full length novel. I'd written lots of stuff before then, but never written a whole novel. And I just did it to see if I could.
Wow.
I didn't have any kind of goal in mind for publishing it. I didn't know where to go to do that. I didn't I just didn't. I wrote it purely for the challenge and for the love of the written word and to see if I could actually make it happen, if I could put it together, if I could build a book. And that's really what it takes. You have to build a book. But, and so, here I am now, 13 books
That's
later.
crazy.
And I don't know if there was some confidence that I had that I knew I had a gift for language and a love for books. And the combination of that gift of language and a love for books is really what spurred me on and kept me writing. So,
Wow. Well, I can't wait to finish because I have the copy that you sent me.
I,
I don't know, I'm about three-quarter. I guess it's about three-quarters. So I can't wait to read the ending because in The Law of Moses, I loved the last paragraph. And I'm not going to tell anybody what that is because you have to read it and don't go forward. Just
and
read
you're
the
like,
book.
wait, the last paragraph. What? And my mom didn't get it. It was my sister.
Oh,
Mom, you you got to read that again
me
because she didn't
too.
realize.
Me
And
too.
you don't the entire book you don't realize, and then the last paragraph it's like at
Oh,
last a piece of chocolate or something.
it
or
absolutely is because you know what? I don't think I got it the first time I read it through it because it was this time that I read through it. I was like, whoa, how'd she do that?
yeah.
How'd she do
Wait,
that?
yeah, a little clue. It's the person you think is speaking when the book begins is not the person that's speaking, and that's all.
That's
And
all.
nobody will really understand and remember until they've read the book, and then they'll go, "Oh, wait,
Well, I'm glad I wasn't the first. I don't know that it wasn't that I didn't get it, but it didn't make me like this time. I was like,
yeah,
huh, whoa,
yeah."
what just happened? Okay, I was like, that was brilliant. That's why I love reading your books so much. There's just so much in it, and I picked out one of my favorite quotes from this book so far. So, but that's okay because I only use them in the first half of the book, and I don't
Sure.
try not to use quotes from the end. But it was in the end, only three things matter. And she pointed at Abuela. I don't even know how to say that. Her name.
Abuela,
Abuela. Okay.
abuela.
Abuela said, she pointed at the sky who you are and who your. No, wait, I missed that. She pointed at the sky who you are and who your friends are. But I missed it. There's three things. I
Yeah.
can't believe I didn't write down.
Things
Okay, maybe
matter.
you know what I'm
Who
talking about.
he is, who
Who
he
she.
is, meaning God, who
Right.
he is, who you are, and who your friends are.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I guess when I was writing it while I was eating lunch today, that was just not a good thing, right? Because I was like putting my notes together. So yeah, I love when I read it. I was like, oh, that's one of those moments when you just stop. And I love quotes so much, and I love finding them. They're kind of like this hidden
Right.
treasure in books is to find
Yeah.
them. Sometimes I cheat and I go on Goodreads and see what everybody else is saying.
And you're like, oh yeah, I like that one too. I do the same thing.
Yeah,
I love quotes. I have quotes all over my house, words all over my house. That's how I decorate too.
well,
See, I
yeah,
told
and when you come up with a quote like that, do you know it? Are you like, oh my god, people are gonna love this?
you. Yeah, sometimes I'll write something and it doesn't have that ring of truth.
Yeah,
It doesn't resonate. You don't get that resonating when you write it. And then other times, and I'll keep working on it. That quote, I kind of knew what I wanted her grandmother to communicate, but I
yes,
couldn't get it right. I couldn't get it right. I couldn't get it right, and I kept coming back to that, to her grandmother's quote.
right,
And finally, when I did get it right, I was like, okay, there it is. That's it.
yeah.
But I'll bet you I spent days just coming up with that quote, and yeah, it felt right, and it works really well with the story, and you continue to see how it
How?
works in this
That's
story.
right. And that's what I love more is like not only did I get it while I was reading it and then I marked it and then when I went back and then it still
Yeah,
means like even more. And a
yeah,
lot of times what I'll do too with books is I get to the end and I did this with The Law of Moses. I get to the end, which I was blown away, and then I go back and I read the first chapter again or the first little
right.
part because then
Yeah.
you're blown away again because you're like, oh my God, she is brilliant. I thought she was
Oh,
brilliant, and now I know she's brilliant because it means something, and you see where it's building from. Because sometimes you forget like where it was coming
Right.
from, and you go
Right.
back and it has
That's
this
why
deeper.
rereads actually they're so great. I mean, with some books, rereads are so satisfying because you
Yes,
go back and you know already, and so then you're able to really, you're really to pick up all those little layers that
Yes.
for me are so much fun as an author. It's so much fun to layer those things in.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of times, because I don't reread, partly because I don't have a lot of time,
Right.
but when you can reread, I have a few betas that will go back and reread. And without fail, it's always the second and third times where they really fall in love with the book. I mean, they loved the book before, but something happens when you can go back and really appreciate the layering that happens in
Right.
the story.
So, okay, you said you have a historical fiction coming up. Do you have a title for that?
It's yeah, we talked about it a little bit. It's called What the Wind Knows. That's kind of a
Right.
mouthful. The wind knows, but it won't come out because of with traditional publishing, things are always mapped out way in advance.
Yeah.
So it won't come out until January of 2019.
Oh,
So
wow.
the book has been done since September of last year. Um, it will go through, several rounds of type copy editing, and we haven't. I have a cover that I would love for them to use that Hong Lee did. She has done all my covers,
Mm-hmm.
and she collaborate really well. But I don't know, if they'll use it. But it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's set in Ireland. Um, lot of really interesting, in fact, a lot of interesting ancestral things for me. The main characters are named after my family members.
Oh.
So that book is really special. My dad told me it has a soul. That was it.
Oh.
Has a soul, he said, and it really does. So I'm
Oh, I
excited
can't
about that. We'll have
wait.
to talk again when that one comes out,
Oh,
and I'll give you
definitely.
an early copy. But it's just there's something about historicals, and there's something about every genre because you get to go places
We're
and give
right.
yourself little vacations from from where you've already been.
Right. And is that why you always keep your foot into self-publishing? I don't know if we talked about
Yes,
this last time, but I think that's what you said is like because then you can come up with these other books that you can just get out there for your readers.
yeah, I can just put it out and I have an idea. I can
Yeah.
continue on in this world of Moses and David and now Noah, where and actually my story Running Barefoot, the very first story I wrote, the characters in Running Barefoot, there's a cameo also in Moses and David of those characters. So it's it is a world that I've created with characters. And so the nice thing about self-publishing is that I can go back and pluck some
Right.
character in that world and 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 explore that story. And I don't have I'm not chained to a certain
Right.
timeline. With the space that happens with traditional publishing, I just that's just so much time and between books. So this has worked out well for me to change genres so that I have some more options,
Yes.
and then to keep my foot in the self-publishing door has been really fun.
Well, I am so happy that you were able to get me the smallest part. I feel so blessed to have been able to read it
I
before it
will
comes
send you
out.
a nice, um, finished, edited, scrub copy with the cover on it. I'll send that. I'll send you that
Oh,
art
thank
so
you.
you can finish it in style.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, show everybody the smallest part again. You can show them both, and so
Well,
there it is. That's
that's
awesome.
February 13th, so
Which
very soon.
the cover. I love seeing the cover because now I know the
That's
story.
why.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And
And then
then
the Law of
yes,
Moses and the
Song of
companion book, the Law of Moses is the
Song
Song
of
of David.
David, and I will be reading that, and I can't wait. So yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to have all of Amy's links under here, and we will definitely talk when the next one comes out. So, no
Mm.
problem. Thank you for,
Right.
and you can keep sharing
You.
with me what you're writing. No
I will.
issues with that.
Right. Awesome. Thank you
Uh,
so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Hi guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I love talking to Amy. That was just a blast. I mean, she is such an amazing writer. I can't even tell you enough. I mean, go get her books. Any of them, pick one. It doesn't matter. You pick the ones we talked about. Even, I recommend all her books. She's really, really good author. So I love her, and thank you for making it this far. I will have all her links listed underneath here. And if you liked our video, please hit like. And if you want to know and get some notice of all my videos, you can subscribe to this channel. Thank you, guys.